welcome to another episode of Menopause. Why Don't I Know That? And today's subject matter is we were going to do a podcast about this anyway, but this sort of prompted us to get onto it today and just have a little chat. And it's about women, the workplace, and menopause.
Yes.
And how does that all fit in? And the reason it was prompted was because of something that you saw. There was a news article that you found that you shared with us, and we were all super surprised by the company that brought it out.
Well, we've been following workplace menopause in the workplace for a long time.
Yep.
You know, we've got a pack coming out, very shortly that's going to be dedicated to that. And obviously we've been really supportive of workplace awareness in lots of different workplaires. But as you said, I was online yesterday and the company was Lego.
Yeah.
And I was
we all just went, what?
Lego?
What?
I suppose, you know why? It was because I was so surprised because I just kind of figured, and it was my bad, I just assumed that a company like Lego would have a very young...
innovative kind of.
So that I imagined that like all the staff would be young.
Yeah.
But actually when I watched the video and saw the staff, that it was a mixed range of ages.
Well, maybe they were young when they started.
Maybe.
Well,
the funny thing was when I first saw that it was Lego, I was like, are they making Lego things to like women's body parts? Is what I thought. It wasn't really a menopause.
Well, when you first said it, I thought, is she talking Lego's tomato paste, or are you talking Lego, the stuff you step on?
The step on as
excruciating painful
that
Lego.
pain.
But like
that
when
pain.
you said, I suppose Lego's been around for a really, really long time. I mean, I still have my Lego from when I was a child, so I suppose the women that are there maybe designed my Lego,
well,
and
maybe
that's why they're still there now going through menopause.
Maybe. But what was fascinating actually, and it was a beautiful video. I've got to give them credit. They did do a really good job of it. And so they were talking to all the different staff members, and obviously the younger ones, but both male and female. When I say younger, they look. Gosh, if they were 20, if they were lucky. Yeah. And of course, it was the first time for them that they've heard the word menopause. And, it's not something that...
I'm still baffled that people... I suppose, we're in a bubble because that's what we do and that's what we talk a lot about. And it is surprising when you hear people who have never heard the word menopause or sort of go... You see Vox Pops and they say, who is it for? And they sort of go, oh, old people?
Well, they did. They did. And see, I think this is where I would like to have this conversation. It is like, as much as menopause awareness is... amazing, and it should be a topic that we've talked about, and I agree to a certain extent about menopause in the workplace, but I kind of look at it as all right, if that was my son at work and
he doesn't care.
I don't really think he needs to know about menopause in the workplace at 20 years old, or does he? Should he be more aware of the people and the age groups around him? Is my thought process old-fashioned?
I think, it just opens up another whole discussion, doesn't it? Because if we're talking about menopause for women, then are we going to start talking about prostate for men? I mean, there's a lot of awareness around that. So, but a lot of women wouldn't understand that unless they're around somebody who's gone through that thing. So the whole menopause, I think, and I agree, while it's great for awareness in the workplace and it should be a safe place for women to be able to, maybe it should just be... part of HR, part of that sort of human resources
onboarding process, maybe.
So to say, look, if you have any issues, come and see us. We're aware that some women are different to others. Then, let's talk about it. But does it mean they need to start having like these massive staff gatherings where we all have a little kumbaya and hug all the menopause women? I mean, I'm not being mean. I'm a menopause woman, and I don't know if I was. In that corporate work environment, which I have been for many years of my life, I would cringe at a staff meeting with men in there talking about vaginal dryness and,
I'm with you.
Mood swings and stuff, and going, well, all right, we understand that there's different things that go on, but, do I have to sit there with men and, they're imagining my vaginal dryness?
I think what it is, it's crossing lines, isn't it? It's fine for us to sit there with a group of our friends and their husbands, and we will joke and we'll talk about all the things that we're going on in our friend group. How comfortable am I talking and having that conversation in a corporate environment with my boss.
Yeah.
I think it's fine that women talk about it, but I don't know how comfortable I feel about that. And then we have to look at, well, how comfortable do men feel about it? I mean, a lot of men just don't want to know. They don't want to know their wife that their wife is going through menopause. And now we're saying, but you should, it's okay that you might not know what your wife is going through, but you're now expected to know what your staff members are going through. And it's a really interesting question because some women, again, we're in that space where it's like we should be talking about it, and I'm all for that. That's how we created the Menopause Collection and why we've got the community groups and all the other resources available.
But how far does
far does it go, and how comfortable are you as women? That's what I want feedback from. We want to hear from you to tell us, are you comfortable with talking about menopause in the workplace, and where does it stop and where does it start?
Well, I think that conversation is about to get pushed. So people are going to be challenged with that question now, because obviously there's a lot of talk and discussions about some legislative changes in Parliament, right? So, there's a group of women, doctors, professionals, whatever, who are pushing the menopause conversation in Parliament to say that, the first time it was introduced in, is that the right place to be in the Parliament House, in the speaking environment, in the public gallery? Is that the place to be talking about menopause? That's just taking it a whole nother level, let alone just, I think it sort of needs to stick to the HR level. I mean, am I being a prude? Am I being?
I don't. I'm kind of with you, but I'm reading on everything that I'm kind of seeing online. Kind of says we are, we are prudes. I don't know.
We're not reading the room.
I think it's great. I do think it's wonderful. And like I said, I think it could be a little bit more subtle. I've seen online, especially in the UK now, like there's certificates given out for menopause there's menopause accreditation certificates being given out to workplaces, and I'm just like,
Well, I can tell you.
Did I miss the train?
I mean, you have a son. I have two sons.
Yes.
And if this was brought up at one of my son's workplaces, I think they would just, sit there and go, politely go, well, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah. I mean, even bringing it up around the table, he's my child, but he's just like, Mum, I don't want to know. Like, I'm too young for that. And I tell you what was interesting.
There's a time for everything, isn't there?
Yeah, there was a time. And, we've, doing the job that we do, we work with younger people sometimes, especially when it comes to creating social media content and agencies and outsourcing certain things. And it is interesting. One of the agencies that we recently worked with, a guy called Joey, and he was gorgeous. He was just lovely.
That's not his real name.
But he was 21 years old, and he was my account manager. And I tell you what, the things that he learned in the 6 months or 8 months that we worked together, he was just like, oh my God. He's like, is that what my wife has got to look forward to? Yeah. And then he would walk around going, I'm a menopause expert. I'm a menopause expert. And I'm like, dude, you're 21. There's nothing. You've got a long time to go and a lot of things to enjoy and experience before you have to worry about that.
I mean, there's so many things that women, we've made a bit of a list of the things that we need to be aware of. So, we know that menopause is really unique for everyone. We all have different kinds of symptoms, but the thing that binds us is menopause. Yes. Like, we're all going to go through it to some extent or another. And those symptoms that, women in the workplace, and we're not just talking about women corporate. I mean, think about women in all sorts of different environments. Maybe in the mining sector, hospitality,
the fact that you work with anybody,
cleaners, they're all going through this and dealing with it in their own way. And some obviously have the ability to maybe step outside and fan themselves, or
but imagine standing at a restaurant. Let's say you're a server, for example, and you're a mature server, or even if you're a mature lady in Bunnings, and someone's asking you for help, and all of a sudden you just have this intense inferno that comes along, and you've got sweat, it's literally, you're holding up your hair,
Some women are worse. My stepmother was really bad. I remember her hot sweats, and, at that time I was in my 20s, my kids were babies, and, luckily, we spoke about it. But, oh man, did she suffer. Yeah. She just had the real sweat beads and then started just dripping down the side of her face.
All right, so we'll pretend that we're not prudish in any way, which we're really not. So let's talk about, all right, so how do we deal with it as women with suffering with hot flushes in the workplace? Like, what do we do? How can we relieve it, negate it, which is, I think, is probably impossible, but what are the steps that we can do as women to make ourselves more comfortable and not be in that embarrassing situation sitting across from a boardroom or, I could say, serving somebody and breaking out into a sweat? What do we do?
Yeah, well, obviously you've got to look for solutions, and there needs to be some, I agree with the, solutions to supporting women in the workplace and education and awareness. Of course, that's great. To the extent which we just spoke about, whether men need to be included in that conversation, don't know. I'm still out thinking about that one. I know we talk about inclusivity and supportive workplace. Like that's, it's a big word, isn't it? 2023 inclusivity, but to that extent, where you're talking about women's personal issues, I don't know. So anyway, flexible work arrangements. Well, that's another one.
Yes.
So do we? So women can have a healthy work-life balance, so they can, so what we don't want is women leaving the workforce because of menopause.
Yeah, which
right?
we know statistically is a high number because they don't know how to, or they feel embarrassed by their symptoms. Exactly.
Yeah. So they're leaving. So, reducing maybe schedules, but then, if you're a high career achieving woman and you want to remain in the workplace,
you can't take time off because you're having a mood swing or because your hormones are, fluctuating up and down. But government and people are talking about that we should be able to do that.
But then what next issue does that go on to? Are we talking, obviously for chronic illness, how...
It's a can of worms. I think it's a can of worms that we just don't know yet how far that's going to, how far that's going to go.
So supportive workplace policies. Now I get that too. Temperature control. Did you know? Like this was something that I read many years ago, and it was how you can go into workplaces and it's freezing.
Yes.
Like the aircon is
the
freezing.
Cinema. Every time you go to the movies, it's
on and
so
off.
cold.
But corporate offices are really bad for this. And what I heard was that the original setting, how they always say, but it's set on whatever it is, 20 or something, that was designed according to the comfort of a man in a suit. Okay,
Why,
and
boy,
it hasn't
not
changed
surprised
since
about that.
then. This is why women are always freezing. But having said that, as a younger worker in a corporate workforce, I always found it freezing. But now, as a menopausal woman, maybe not. Maybe it's a good setting. But that's how they set temperature settings.
Look, post-COVID, I think the flexible workplace, like that, it's kind of a thing anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It just is. So I think we kind of accept that. I think small things again. It just comes back down to what we consider to be appropriate conversation versus appropriate action. For example, do we need to sit down and have a long conversation about what causes hot flushes, or do we just go buy a fan and stick it on the desk?
Well, maybe HR could provide fans for women. Fantastic. Nobody would mind that.
No.
The other thing was like wellness programs. Now, I've done some wellness programs in the corporate sector for some big companies, and they absolutely loved it. I didn't particularly, talk about menopause, but we talked about wellness and nutrition as a whole, and I think that definitely has a place in any workplace situation, and maybe that can then be tailored, or maybe you could have a general one, and then all right for those ladies.
Yes, I think it's something that could be tagged on, as opposed to, and I'm totally on board with that. Instead of making it solely around menopause in the workplace, why not have it as part of a wellness or holistic, looking at it from a bigger point of view, and it's just a topic that is added in there so that nobody really has to feel uncomfortable. We can bring in men's mental health there as well, because that's been a massive, huge talking for the last 10 years. The Are You OK days, and all of that kind of thing. So I was just surprised, like I said, to see a company like Lego. And I don't know why I just was, and that's what made us kind of think about, all right, well,
it came from a surprising place that we weren't expecting, and even though the conversation is happening out there in the corporate world, it would be really interesting to hear back from any ladies who are listening to this, or any men who are listening to this. Has this been introduced in your workplace? Are there discussions about this being introduced in your workplace? What do you think about it? Do you want to be included in those conversations? Or should it be, a lunchtime wellness program for the women in the office, not including the men, especially the young ones? I mean, I could not imagine my son sitting through a menopause. They hear enough from me.
He'd be mortified.
Yeah.
He'd be mortified.
One of my sons would take it better than the other with a sense of humour. But the other one would just be sitting there with that resting bitch face.
I'm not paid enough for this.
I do not need to be here. Can I go to lunch, please?
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, when we talk about menopause in the workplace, we obviously don't want to see women leaving the workforce because of menopause. I think that would be really sad that we are losing really competent, professional, smart women who need to be part of conversations. And it's always a really good mix at work to have older people and younger people.
Yeah.
You don't just want to be pushing them out the door just because you're 45 and you might be perimenopausal.
And as much as menopause is something to be talked about, it doesn't always have to be in a doom and gloom or getting into the nitty gritty details of what our bodies actually go through. I think in the workplace there can be some acknowledgement. Certainly there needs to be some humour. There absolutely has to be some humour, because I tell you what, sometimes if you're not laughing, you're damn well crying.
Yeah, true. Sense of humour will always carry you through. And I think that's another conversation, isn't it, about the way that menopause is presented. It goes, ladies, it's on its way, you better watch out, it's not going to be good.
It's an old ladies thing. You're dried up, you're shrivelling up, it's all of those things.
Whereas the whole perception now of women ageing and ageing well, that's the conversation we should be having about, you see women now, even models, that were younger models, and they're in their 50s now, and they look bloody amazing.
Yep.
I mean, am I saying that because I'm in that age bracket?
No, they do look good. Elle McPherson looks incredible still.
Yeah, and I think because there's more of a focus on health and well-being in general, and obviously longevity is a big conversation that a lot of people are having, and of course, the closer you get to, I suppose, the end of your life, the more you want to talk about longevity and drag it out. So, there's some great people out there that are leading the way about discussions. We've got some great Australian celebrities talking about it. Like I said, Elle, Naomi Watts is another one. She's out there talking about it. There's people writing books about it. There's comedians laughing about it.
We've got musicals singing about it. We're doing podcasts about it.
Talking about it.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Does it need to be in the workplace to the extent that some people are pushing that conversation to be? I haven't made up my. Well, I reckon I have made up my mind.
And that's okay. It's okay, not to jump on the bandwagon of this whole menopause awareness in every workplace, in every industry. It's okay to have a different opinion. That's the whole point of having the conversation.
Have awareness. Have those conversations. Know that it exists. But let's keep those conversations and let's empower each other as women to keep those conversations flowing.
But as women, what you can do, obviously, is you can put a fan or take a fan. Just you can also ask if you have got temperature controlled rooms. You can potentially move offices. You can think about what you're actually wearing. Because what you're wearing, breathing, clothes that breathe, cotton, hemp, silk, clothes that really breathe, that does help. And then obviously if you have got a good hormone regulator, something that's helping, some really good herbs to help keep you calm,
there's lots
getting
of
a good night's sleep, there's all of these things.
Diet, nutrition, exercise regime. Basically just health and well-being, really, isn't it? Making sure
Which goes back to exactly what we're talking about. Should it be a health and well-being conversation for the workplace as a whole, as opposed to it being focused on menopause?
Well, more than 60% of Australians now overweight or obese, I think we do need to start having those conversations. So, women, the workplace, and menopause. I reckon we covered that.
We think we did.
Smashed it out.
All right, well, that's our chat for the day.
We would like to hear from anyone who's listening or watching us, whether you're listening to us through Spotify or watching this on YouTube. Reach out, leave a comment. Let us know what you think about, women in the workplace. And if you're a bloke, do you want to listen to the nitty-gritty of what happens to our beautiful bodies as we get that little bit older? Cheers, everyone.
See you.
See ya.